Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how I made this Brownheart cigar pen with silver hardware. Fair warning, I'm still learning how to turn pens. This is only my fourth pen and my second cigar pen. So I didn't film how I cut these blanks, but it's very simple. Every pen hardware kit comes with brass tube inserts. I took the Brownheart blank and measured the length of the tubes onto the blank and cut them using my bandsaw. I then drilled a 10mm hole through the middle of the blank and secured them using CA glue. I then put them on my mandrel in order from left to right, left being the tip of the pen that you write with, and the right being the top of the pen or the cap. Those metal bushings in between the blanks are used as guides to measure how thick the ends of the pens will be, so that when the pen is finally assembled, the wood blanks will fit flush with the hardware. So here I'm using a spindle roughing gouge, about a 1 inch. I don't know if this is what you're supposed to use, but this works for me. It seems to cut the wood fast enough to get them round. That's pretty much what I'm doing here, is just getting them round, getting a rough shape into them, how I want them the profile to be, so that they feel good in your hand. I was using a smaller spindle gouge, and this one just seems to cut faster, and I feel like I have more control with it. I can control the paper that I want. I can control how much material I'm taking off, and it just seems to cut a little bit easier. So here I am coming in with that smaller spindle gouge I was talking about that I originally started using. I'm pretty much just playing with tools at this point. I don't know exactly what each tool does. I have a rough idea just by trial and error. So all I was doing there was putting a little bit extra taper on the end. Here's the skew. This is used to clean up the cuts that I made with the gouges. Right here, it's just pretty much just scraping the wood, taking very little material out, just getting rid of those grooves that those gouges were making. So right here, I'm just trying to get it down close as possible to those bushings there. Each one of those bushings, like I said, are different sizes. So smallest being on the far left, second smallest being on the far right, and then in between you can see the two different sizes. Here I take off the tool rest. I'm going to start sanding. I like to start with 80 grit just to make sure that I get it close as possible down to the size of those bushings. With the tools, I feel like I might accidentally dig in too deep and have a void, so that when I put the pen together, the hardware is higher than the pen. So once I'm done with each grit, usually I'll take the sandpaper and I'll run it with the grain, because as this is spinning, it's going against the grain, and those scratches will show up a lot easier than if you go with the grain. So you'll see me at the very end of each grit going and with the grain, just to knock out those nasty scratches that they put in there. And it really makes a difference once you step up to each grit of sandpaper. Because essentially when you step up to each grit of sandpaper, what you're doing is you're trying to get rid of the scratches you put in before. This piece of wood really is just a beautiful piece of wood. It's got really detailed grain. I really like it. I turned some zebra wood, and honestly, I like this grain better. It just seems more exotic, more detailed. So here I am starting with 320. I take each piece of sandpaper and I cut it in little strips. And then I start from the top of the strip, work my way down. The reason I'm using 320 is because it just works. It takes out the 150 scratches just fine. I don't see any reason on starting with like 220 or something. So I always leave a little extra piece at the end that I haven't used yet to make sure I get rid of those end grain scratches. So yeah, now I'm going with 600. I work all the way up to about 2,000. That just seems to really make the wood shine before I put any finish on it. The shinier you get it before the finish, in theory, is going to make it even shinier when you put the finish on. So all this sandpaper is automotive sandpaper that I had laying around from when I painted my gas tank. Just repurposed stuff that I had laying around, so I didn't really have to go out and buy any of this. Once you get up to about 600 grit, you really don't see those linear scratches anymore. I still go with the grain at the very end of each sandpaper. Whether it's doing anything, I don't know. But I mean, it makes it pretty much luster once I'm done. You can't really tell right now. There's a lot of dust on it. But if I took a piece of paper towel and rubbed all that dust off, it would look pretty shiny. Obviously not a gloss finish, but pretty shiny. So this will be my last pass with sandpaper directly on the wood before I put on the CA finish. So now I take a dry piece of paper towel and just wipe the wood, getting all the dust out. You can see all the dust coming off. This is just so when I put the finish on, there's no contaminants inside the pores of the wood. So now I'm taking the blanks off the mandrel to put on the centers. I do this so that when I apply the CA glue is essentially super glue. I just have different thicknesses of it. This is a little bit more of a higher quality super glue. I do that so that the bushings that are on there don't get all covered in CA glue and everything glued together. This is just easier to clean up. Here I put a piece of paper towel underneath. I drag my tip of my CA glue across the top, dripping as I go. When I first start out, I'll do about 2 coats and then I'll sand it down with 600 usually. If I get drips, like here I got drip, I use 320. I do this because when you get the wood wet, the fibers in the wood will stand up, and this way that later on when I do my finish sanding, it's a little bit easier to do. I don't have to take off as much material if I just do this quickly at the beginning. Here I'm using wet 600. I noticed that I had some grip on the far right and that they weren't coming off very well. So I switched to a 320 grit to help cut it down. I never went through the finish, thankfully. It just knocked off those high spots and made it smooth. So when I apply the other coats, they go on a lot smoother. Here I am just playing out with my razor knife the spots that were dripped. So now I'm just drying off the piece of wood, pretty much just looking for any shiny spots that the sandpaper didn't touch, which would indicate a low spot. So then I go back through and I keep sanding, very lightly, not putting a lot of pressure, to see if I can get rid of all the shiny spots so that it's completely smooth. It should also, every coat that I apply, I will hit at the very end. I'll spray it with a aerosol activator, which will instantly harden the CA glue. That's why you notice me going right after applying glue to it with the sandpaper, because it's already instantly hard as soon as I spray that activator on there. So here I am, I'm going with some more coats of the thin. I'll probably do about 2 more coats of the thin usually, and then I'll apply a medium thickness. And the reason I do that is so that the thin will fill in any of the scratches I just put in there. And then when I put the medium on, that's just so I don't have to do as many coats. It will apply more glue each time. Each time I apply it with the sandpaper or the paper towel, I take scissors and I cut off each end. A lot of guys will use plastic bags to apply the CA glue. I just feel it's easier with the paper towel. Super glue does react with paper towel for some reason. It'll create heat. And actually, one of my other blanks I was doing, I wasn't wearing gloves, and the super glue had seeped through the towel, glued to my finger, and it ended up burning my index finger. So now I have a nice blister on my index finger. Pretty crazy. So honestly, I don't count how many coats I put on there. Usually I just stop it and look at it and see how thick it is. You can tell by the edges where it runs over how thick it is. That's pretty much when I stop. Here's micro mesh pads. They start out 1500 and move all the way up to 12,000 grit. This is what I use to polish it. Here I am with the 1500. This knocks it down fast. It'll take off all those high spots and make it nice and smooth. And then as I go through the grit, it progressively gets shinier and shinier. It's almost like a glass finish. Now the reason I use CA glue instead of like a wood wax, just because it as I hear it lasts longer. I did a couple slimline pens, the real skinny ones, with a wax, and I didn't really like the sheen that it put on it, and it actually wore off pretty fast. I really didn't even use the pen. I just pretty much carried it and showed it off to some of my friends, and I mean, it wore down pretty fast. I was using a min wax polish. So I like the CA glue. It honestly makes the pen, in my opinion, look way more fancy. Like I said, you'll see it'll put pretty much like a glass finish on it. Pretty cool. That people came up with this idea and decided to use super glue or CA glue on wood and make it have a hard acrylic finish. As you can tell, I went and stopped between each one to show you the different schemes that it puts on it. Here's the final one, 12,000 grit. I mean, it literally feels like paper. It's so smooth, and it really, really just makes it shiny. You see the water beating up on it. I mean, it's crazy. So next I'll take a piece of 320 and set it on something flat. Here's my joiner. It's got a flat tabletop, and now I'm just knocking off all the excess super glue that's on the edges of it, just so that when the hardware goes on, it sits flush. And then I take it and I roll it on its very edge, just putting a little bevel on the edge, so that if there is a little piece of super glue hanging off, when I put it together, it's less likely to chip off. Here's the kit that I'm using. I got it at Woodcraft. It's just a silver cigar pen blank kit. I like the way it's set up. I don't have a pen press, so I just use a bench vise, and I just laid a microfiber cloth in there so that it had a little cushion, so I didn't end up scratching any of the pieces when I put it together, or creating burrs so that it doesn't go together as smooth. Everything in this kit pressed together pretty clean. I had no problems with it shimmying or getting kind of at an angle when I was pressing it together. Like I said, I'm just using a bench vise, and I mean, it works perfectly fine. I don't see any reason why I would need to buy a pen vise to assemble these. It goes together just fine. Now I'm just screwing on the transmission and sliding the pieces together. That's pretty much it. So there's my pen. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my first video. I'm probably going to make more. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit a like button. Leave a comment if you have done this before and you have any tips for me. I'd greatly appreciate it. If anybody wants a pen, let me know. Thank you.